Welcome back to Creative Week, Geometry's Creative Week, and to an inspiration session I'm very proud to host. My name is Till Hohmann. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Geometry in the EMEA region, and with me here today is Brian Yessian. Hello.
Hi Till, how are you?
I'm good, and we can see you're in the studio, which makes a lot of sense. You are a lifelong musician. You lead the creative charge of Yessian music and are a specialist for immersive sound. So that's one of the things you do. And of course, we've also worked together in the past. I think we've done some really amazing projects because Brian is the person I always call when it gets really difficult related to audio and sound. So that's what I did in preparation for this talk. So
That's
Brian,
right.
why don't you maybe better than myself, tell us a little bit about Yessian music.
Sure. So Yessian Music is a company that was actually founded in 1971 by my father. So this is our 49th year in business. He played in a band and was actually playing a gig where he was asked to create a jingle, and he had never he didn't know what a jingle was, and so he thought, well, I can write music, and he came up with a jingle for Traverse City Bank and Trust, and that was his foray into music. So over the years, Yessian Music has become a music and sound design company. We're creating music and sound design for TV commercials, for immersive experiences, networks, original compositions for themed entertainment, theme parks, immersive and experiential branded projects. So all over the world, we have offices in Detroit, New York, LA, and Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah, so, we want to talk about today, we want to talk about the power of sound to create immersive experiences. And that's the tricky topic. And that's why I called you, being the expert for that. Now, the first question is kind of obvious. So, is playing loud music at an event what we're going to be talking about when it comes to immersive sound?
Well, not so much. I mean, there was a time where you'd have a DJ on stage, maybe a band on stage, some lighting, and playing loud music. And I think those times are over.
All right, so with that, let's kill the DJ. That's the title of our little session today. I want to kill the DJ. Not really, of course, but when it comes to creating experiences, we do think there's something more thrilling to do, something more to consider, and just what that is, we're going to talk about. And we'll start by focusing on something that does make, at least in my view, you guys at Yessian Music unique. It's your experience in working for theme parks. So it's kind of the masters of experience. And maybe you tell us a little bit about just what you do for theme parks.
Sure. We got involved in the themed entertainment industry maybe 15 years ago, creating music for museums. And we were approached by a client early on asking if we could create music for an immersive experience. We really didn't know what that meant, but we knew we could create music for films. And we thought, well, let's give this a go. And our first project was for the Fort Siloso Museum in Singapore, an immersive walkthrough experience that that was our first foray into this industry. And since then, over the last 15 years, we've been creating for all types of parks around the world, from every brand from Universal and Disney to Chimelong in China, Dubai Parks and Resorts, Lotte World in Korea, and pretty much every corner of the globe. We are creating music for attractions, for the rides, the actual dark rides, immersive theaters, sound for the entire park-wide audio system. So as you're walking through a theme park, the sound that you hear as you're walking around that park. And it all has to be very immersive and surround the guests.
Okay. So it isn't just, I think that's one of the things, we talked about this obviously beforehand, and one of the things that really struck me is you can kind of consider, of course, music does play a role in a ride, and if it's maybe an AR ride these days, fine. But the notion that it's actually the entire experience from the moment that people enter, everything they hear. So you guys actually design that, and I think there's a case. Maybe why don't we watch one of the cases?
Sure.
Okay, so let's going to talk about Wings Over Washington, and maybe we'll watch the video first, and then you can give us a bit of depth on that.
Okay, absolutely.
So for Wings Over Washington, we wanted to create an experience that began the second you walk off the pier and into the queue. And that story continues through every detail, the soundscape, the signage. You're not getting on a ride. You're entering a story and you're becoming a participant in this fully rendered environment.
To look at an attraction near the end of the project and say, wow, that looks like the concept art that we did. You know, that's something that we sort of marvel about both our own work, but all of the partners, including the Griffith family, and making this thing come together.
When we walk into the queue room in Wings Over Washington, it looks like this beautiful log cabin. Now, it didn't cost that much to put some timbers and curved barrels and put the topographic map up. It's not like they had to spend $10 million, but paying attention to that detail makes it feel like it cost $10 million.
So we recorded a symphony orchestra out of Washington, the Pacific Symphonia. It almost brought me to tears. It was so good.
It was quite a long process, but it's really exciting now that it's open. We actually had to take the roof off and put a whole new foundation in.
This probably is one of the best theaters of all that we've built. It's Disney quality. The fact that they put so much attention to that is what we appreciate most about this client. Even the ride system itself is covered with Aboriginal art. It's beautiful.
We're figuring out really how to bring the guest into the story, make them part of the adventure.
Well, that's an amazing, amazing example, and I think it really helps if you bring to life just what you did, the scale of how much you did for that.
Sure. For Wings Over Washington, it was a pretty unique project because we were trying to capture the idea of Washington State and what does that sound like, and what everything from the sound design aspects and the sound of the forests and the mountains in Washington and the city to a musical theme that would represent the state of Washington, along with a tribute to the indigenous peoples of Washington, because that's such an important part of their history. And we were able to utilize the Seattle Sinfonia Orchestra for the project, as well as the Sacred Water Canoe family, which is one of the most amazing indigenous people choruses and instrumental groups that came in and recorded for us. And we were able to capture some great moments of their traditional song and dance for this project too. For this, then, we created, it's an immersive fly theater. So it's basically a flying over the state of Washington. And we had to surround guests in music. From the moment they entered the attraction in the queue, through various experiences, a pre-show that guides them through what they're going to see, into the main attraction film, which is an environment set up like you're in the forest of Washington, and you're lifted up into the sky with this amazing music score and theme that people would then hopefully walk away humming and whistling as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is fantastic, and I think one of the things that I find really interesting is that nature of actually the sound doesn't just start with the attraction, or the ride, which is kind of obvious, but it actually starts from the moment that people enter. And one of the questions I have is, so why do theme parks go to such length? Why do they actually, really think about sound at that scale? Because you could kind of go, we have an amazing ride. People just go there to have fun. That's why they go to a theme park. So they're in a good mood anyway. And, it's all great. And then they're going to go on a ride. But why is it so important for your clients from that industry to really think about sound from the moment that people enter the park, for instance?
Right. Well, when you go to a theme park, you think about it, people are paying money to be entertained. They want to have an experience like they cannot find in the real world. So they're coming to this place, they want to be immersed in entertainment. And in order to really trick their mind and set them into another world, you have to trick a couple of the senses. One of them is visually, obviously, but another one is going to be sound, or it could be a sense of smell or something that you feel. So sound is probably the easiest next step to take. And if you combine that with other senses, like in this attraction, there are smelling aromas that come out that smell like fresh pine trees, or when you're flying over the ocean. The seats are moving, so you're getting a full experience that you really feel like this is a flying experience, and you're actually flying, wind blowing in your face. But with the sound, it's very important to create an environment so it feels like you are in a real world environment. So we're putting sound in the headsets behind your head, in speakers that are set up as an 18.1, I believe this attraction was an 18.1 surround system. So really there's sound that's completely immersing. And then creating a theme that people can walk away with and really grab onto and hear periodically throughout the film. So when people are paying money for an attraction like this, or any kind of themed entertainment venue, you want to make sure that you can give them a thrill, an experience, excitement like they've never experienced before.
Yeah, of course. So that, it is arguably they're also in competition, one with, one theme park with the other. So
Absolutely.
I guess it's also arms race of who's got the best ride.
This is true. And they're always developing new rides constantly.
Yeah. So we're going to move on, and we're actually going to hone in a little bit on using, some of that or all of it for branded experiences. Obviously, because we as Geometry, we don't operate theme parks, we drive brands. We help brands succeed in their space. We call it creative commerce, and one key area for that is experiences, creating experiential marketing experiences, brand experiences. So, how can all of that, what we've just heard, be applied to, how is it that applied to branded experiences?
Well, with a brand, you need to portray that brand in a way that's going to be also exciting for prospective consumers. So consumers identify with brands that they feel they can trust, they feel they can get behind, they can be excited about, and that it's going to do something for them personally. So how can we take that idea of a brand and not just do a traditional TV commercial, but give them an experience that's a bit out of the norm, a bit different, a bit more entertainment focused, and allow consumers to really attach themselves to that brand for many years to come. And I think these types of experiences can really draw consumers in to give them an experience that they will remember and that will identify something that they can identify with alongside that brand.
Yeah, and I think one of the let's call it, it's kind of a segue case, is your case for Ferrari in Abu Dhabi. Which is a permanent space, I understand, and I think you brought the case video, so let's watch that, and then we'll chat a little bit about what you did in that case. right. So Ferrari. I mean, Ferrari. I mean, that's stunning. Obviously, as a brand, and again, I'd argue you don't really need to do all that extra effort because people go to a Ferrari world. It's already exciting. But then we look at this case and we kind of see that the similar attention to detail and also to immersive sound was paid as in a theme park. So just what did you do in this case?
Yeah, in this case, it's interesting because on one side, the theme park was our client, but on the other side, Ferrari was also our client. Ferrari, as we all know, doesn't really need to advertise per se doing traditional TVCs. However, they are trying to create an experience, not just for the people that buy an actual Ferrari, but for their brand and for everything that it encapsulates. Formula One racing, children who are passionate about Ferrari and want to buy apparel, and grow up being fans of the Ferrari brand. So they offer so many more experiences for people than just the actual car itself. In this case, we were creating the audio for a theme park, which was the fully immersive audio for the entire park, which was, or it still is, the largest indoor theme park in the world. It covers, I think, 1 square mile pretty much. It's massive, and it's filled with adrenaline rushing, exciting rides, from the fastest roller coaster in the world to the amazing dark ride experiences that take you through the engine of a Ferrari. And we were able to create all the audio for not just the full park-wide audio systems, but also for several attractions. One thing we had to be very attuned to in this one was that it's a Ferrari. So we had to make sure that we were representing the Ferrari brand in their cars, in the specific sound of their cars, very accurately. So we were recording Ferraris from Formula One cars to their street cars around the world, and capturing those sounds and injecting that into the rides and attractions so that you were getting an authentic sound of a Ferrari engine, not a Lamborghini, not a Porsche, but it had to be Ferrari. So that was a really unique way to almost advertise in a way the Ferrari brand and get people excited about the Ferrari brand through sound. Even creating a Formula One race around the entire park using kind of a Doppler effect audio system, because there were over 600 speakers in this facility. So it was quite a unique and large space to be working in.
Yeah. And of course, it is a permanent space. Everybody who can, if we can all travel again, go to Abu Dhabi, go visit Ferrari World. It's stunning. But much like Wings over Washington, these are permanent spaces, and you kind of go, well, it makes sense for a permanent exhibit to go to all these lengths and to really put so much effort into audio, technology, etc. But then obviously, brand experiences or experiential marketing isn't just about permanent spaces. It's also about non-permanent or more traditional experiences, such as events, limited time events. So how is all of that tech and that thinking of immersive sound, which makes sense in theme parks, is that also leaping into those more traditional, I should call them traditional types of experiences, branded experiences?
Absolutely. And that's, I think, one of our advantages over the years is that we've really cut our teeth in the theme park world and learned the craft of creating for these large venues and experiences, working with various AV companies and the tech side of the hardware side of this all, because that is such an important aspect of how we can develop the creative side of this and what the hardware is to amplify and project the sound that we're creating. Now that we've learned that craft, we're able to apply it to temporary exhibits, and where the audio video equipment that is available today is now so much more advanced than it was 10 years ago, where we can create these same type of experiences in a temporary space for a brand. And we've had the opportunity to work for so many brands around the world, creating these temporary spaces that may be from anything from a single event to several weeks, and give people that same experience only associated with a specific brand.
I think there's a great case from your hometown, Detroit. You worked for Ford. It's stunning. I think a lot of people would have seen the old Central Station. It's been, featured as a place that's been derelict for many, many years, and now it's coming back to life. And there's a great case of you being involved in the first show, or showing how it's going to turn out.
That's
And
right.
maybe watch that case. So that is a non-permanent space, obviously, and it's an installation. And here we go. Here's the Fort Detroit Central Station case. All right, so that's again, even for a non-permanent space, it's fairly large and huge. And clearly, for such a special event, you do need special sound. So what did you do in this particular
That's
instance?
right. In this instance, Ford is turning the old Central Station into their new headquarters for autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles. And they wanted to do something very special for the community to show that they are part of the community, and they want to give back and be ingrained in the Detroit community even more so. And they decided to create a projection mapping of the station, which is being done all over the world, as we know right now, with many brands and many entertainment venues. But they want to do something a little bit different. And this was a winter festival, so it was happening in January, one of the coldest times in Detroit. You're talking about minus 10 Celsius maybe in temperature, and it was outdoors. So how would we physically do this, not just creating the sound content? And it was taking sonically, we were taking people from Detroit's history, from the early 19 teens when the station was built, all the way through present day, and we were giving people a music journey through Detroit music, which was really exciting for us. So everything from early music to Motown to techno, because Detroit is kind of one of the techno electronica capitals of the world, into what we're listening to currently with various artists that come out of Detroit. So working with an AV company, we set up a fully immersive outdoor speaker system because it was tented and heated tents, but people were outside experiencing this in very cold weather. And we had to mix this all outside in the outdoors. So we had our Pro Tools rig set up. We had a lot of hats, scarves, and gloves on, and created an immersive outdoor sound experience for visitors that came, and thousands of people came. It happened over the course of 2 weeks, a big outdoor festival, and really gave Ford a lot of exposure to what they're doing in the city and how they're bringing this dilapidated building back and kind of rising from the ashes type experience. So it was pretty exciting. A lot of emotion out there for people that are from Detroit and could really feel the Detroit spirit and the music that was happening out there.
Yeah, and I think that is, of course, it's a great segue into the last little section here. We're going to talk about what it takes to make the audience feel more. And, the last case clearly is one where you've achieved that. And I think overall, when we talk about brand experience, when we talk about brands going through that, to that limit of really immersing an audience in their brand story, using technology, a lot of technology or not so much technology, that's not the point, but really going all the way in putting the audience into an experience. Obviously, sound is a very powerful tool. So what do you think, everybody should keep in mind when thinking about sound in the future, as a part of experiential, as a part of events? What do we need to keep in mind to really create that immersive nature?
It's really important that sound is part of the first thoughts of creative on a project. So having a sound company involved, hardware company, as well as a creative sound company involved in that first creative research and how the project is going to unfold and come together is really important, because sound in these experiences plays such an important part in capturing the audience and really drawing them into what the experience is and what the brand is. If we can create a special theme, a special sonic environment or sound design palette that is going to help draw people in more and capture them, that's what we're trying to achieve here. We love the projects where we get involved very early on and integrate with a hardware company, because the hardware is also, like I was saying before, is so important to realize what you can achieve sonically. If we spec out, if hardware equipment like speakers are spec'd out and they're very small speakers because of the space or a budget issue, and then we're looking for this big lush orchestral score, well, it may not really come through those speakers in the venue. So we try to work with our brands and agencies to find alternatives to make sure that we can achieve the best sonic quality for whatever the budget might be in the end. And then what are we trying to achieve from an overall experience as well? So having a sound company involved and part of that from an early stage, even though we may not be involved for some time in between, it's important to set those parameters and use us as a consultancy to just find the best path so that the sound can work with the visuals, can work with whatever other element or sense we're trying to capture within that experience, what might be.
Yeah, and I think as we were preparing a little bit for this session, you mentioned one thing which really stuck to me is today, a lot of the times when we set up an event or design an experiential space, be it permanent or non-permanent, one of the things that we need to do is we need to get people off their phones. So that really stuck with me, and he kind of said, well, sound has that power to really pull people away from their device and put them into the moment.
It's true. It's when you can create an environment that is immersive in sound, and you can pull people to different areas of that environment just by a sound trigger that happens behind you, say, or in front of you, or off to the left. And those sound triggers help to bring attention to a specific event that's happening, draw you over to something because you're curious, why am I hearing this? What is this sound that I'm hearing? And it gets people off their phones, absolutely. And it's a way to, again, capture that audience and make them focus in on your brand rather than someone texting them on their phone.
All right, so there is one case we selected that really works against that, which is, you have an audience of press and VIPs coming to a car launch. And arguably, it's kind of that audience, of course, they came to your event, but are they really paying attention? It's maybe a bit cynical, what is this going to be? So pulling them into the moment, into the event is critically important. And I think this is where you really, through sound, enhance the experience from the very beginning. I think this is the case for the Corvette launch, great car, and you did all the sound design, so let's watch the case.
The Corvette has long been the crown jewel of Chevrolet. At GM, every time we take on the task of designing a new Corvette, it must build on its storied history and push towards the future.
This car, the all-new 2020 Corvette, is one that changes everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, the all-new 2020 mid-engine Corvette.
All right, so what exactly did you do to really immerse that audience into this experience, into this launch?
Well, this was a tricky one because we were working in Los Angeles at an airport hangar, which is the largest wooden constructed airport hangar in the world, apparently, and acoustics that are just all over the place. So very echoey and boomy in this space, and we had to work with an AV company that could set up a system that would feel very intimate for this crowd, but still give you the perspective that you're in this large hall and something's coming at you. And with this, it's for the press, so it's a press reveal. There's so many of these press reveals for new cars, and if the press isn't wowed by something happening, obviously it's a very impressive car, the Corvette, the new Corvette especially. But if they're not impressed and wowed, they're not really interested, and they may be looking at their phone or doing something else while their cameras are up capturing the event. So we had to create an experience that was going to really fill them with adrenaline and excitement and just give them something, a Corvette passion here. And we worked with the agency to capture and record these Corvettes on a test track. So we went out to the GM Proving Grounds and recorded we mic'd the full Corvettes up and the engines on all aspects, all sides of the Corvette, and went out with drivers and just did test track runs so we could capture every sound that Corvette makes and the new engine makes, especially since it was a new rear mid-engine car. And in this experience, we wanted to create, because this hangar is so long, we wanted to create the feel that these cars were racing right at the audience, at the press. And as three cars are coming down the hangar, there's a video that starts, then the three cars come down with drones flying overhead, capturing all the video. Two of the cars race right by very close to the press, and the one pulls right up in front and screeches to a halt in front of them. So it gave them this sense that, wow, we're like in a race track scenario and these cars are screaming past us. But since we couldn't completely have the cars mic'd up, we had to recreate how fast they were going, create the sound so that it felt like a real race projected through the speakers, and giving them almost a Doppler effect as those cars went right by their heads. So the speakers were set up in a way that felt like the cars literally were right next to their ear.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. I mean, so all of these obviously prove that if you do go into trying to put your brand, or trying to make your brand provide an experience for an audience, clearly, sound deserves more than saying, "Oh, let's hire a DJ. Here's two speakers, and we're going to have some nice background music." The DJ is going to play a set because obviously you don't have any control over that.
That's
so
right.
I think one of the things I'm learning, we're all learning through this, is that sound and immersive sound is a key element of creating a brand experience, and it does deserve a very, it is more sophisticated, so you really need to think about it from the get-go. I guess that's the big learning. Now, we've seen 4 very, very big cases. I'd argue, I don't even want to ask about the budgets, but does all of this also work at a somewhat smaller scale? So
Absolutely. There's so many ways you can create an immersive experience for a brand. And we've done this with small pop-up shops that are much smaller in nature, may last for several weeks, but the budgets don't always have to be in the hundreds of thousands of whatever currency, but they can be much more compact and created in a way that's that works for that brand and what their needs are. So there's all types of ways you can create immersive audio, even through headphones, which we've been doing a lot of through VR and full 360-degree experiences within a headphone. So projects where it may be a smaller setup and a headphone experience that you're walking through, or you're stationary through VR, and creating a more intimate experience or a smaller footprint of a place for a brand. So there are various ways that we can create this immersive experience and not necessarily break the budget.
yeah, and that's of course why, getting in touch early and really considering this very powerful sense. I think audio is a very powerful sense. Is also paid attention to, is the biggest call out at the end of this little talk, aside from being wowed by the great work. So yeah, thanks for all of this. Is there anything you kind of want to shout out to specifically to our creatives who are thinking about experience ideas maybe at this moment?
I would just say that now is the time to embrace audio like no other. It's the technology has really caught up with what is happening on the visual side. There are so many opportunities to use audio in unique ways today. And I think if you think about it earlier on, there's ways that you can integrate it even better into the full experience so that you do give people a truly full experience from start to finish, rather than so many times where audio might come at the very end or might be an afterthought. This gives you the opportunity to create a fully connected creative experience that will hopefully keep people coming back to your brand time after time.
Yeah. And just maybe we should think about brand experiences having to be as attractive as a theme park. Wouldn't it be awesome if people, if we got to a point that people would want to pay money to enter a brand experience?
And I think that is absolutely possible. I think with what we've seen just for the Ford study at Michigan Central Station, I mean, they set up a full festival there. So it was an opportunity with food trucks and drinks and all types of things that people could actually pay money to buy things and have things. I mean, the brand wasn't necessarily making money off the event, but you can create that event into something that is more like a theme park where you are really connecting people to a specific brand.
So thank you for that. And of course, we're not here to say, let's really kill the DJ. We love our DJs, we love our music, and I think there's a great gift you brought along from your Yessian DJs.
Yes, it's a little, we have offices in New York and in Hamburg and LA and Detroit, but our roots are still Detroit. This is where we started our company. So we thought we'd create a little From Detroit with Love playlist, which is going to take you through some really great Detroit music from the early days to current. And I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for really, immersing us in immersive sound and audio and bringing that to life. And to everybody out there, let's really, try to get to that level. So
thank you for having me.
Listen in, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.